Okay, so this series is going to look at how to make a video sharing database. Now, first thing that would come to mind would be YouTube. So just to properly set expectation, I'm not doing anything that grand. This is more like for internal corporate use. Like say you've got a couple hundred training videos, you want people to be able, your employees to be able to go in, navigate those videos, and be able to do their training. So that's really what I'm going to target. Yes, you could use this as the basis of a customer-facing or consumer-facing video sharing site, but I'm not doing that kind of grand scale. But if that is what you're looking for, this certainly could give you a leg up on that kind of project. So properly set expectation, we're looking at internal institutional use only. Now, first thing you want to do is you want to have blank database here selected, and we'll just open that up. I did a double click so it automatically saved the name. You can actually change the name of your database at any time. If you look up here, you can see it defaulted to database 4. If you had just single clicked, you could have typed in the name. No big deal either way. So if you're not familiar with Access, when Access first opens, it opens to a default table. A table is really the central repository of a database. That's really the heart of a database. This is where you're storing all your information. And a table looks and acts a lot like a spreadsheet, has rows, has columns, has a lot of the same kind of functionality. So what we're going to do is up here, you're going to see this button used a lot. When it's in this regular mode, this is how it would look to the user. If you click on the down arrow, you can choose Design View. It requires you to name it, and then you can actually get into when you design it. So what we're going to do is we're going to call this training_videos. Now, before I go any further, the reason why I'm using an underscore, because I get asked about that sometimes. Spacing, using a space is technically permitted, but it's really not a best practice. Best practice is to avoid spaces when you're using the names of the tables or the names of a field. Now, your actual data can have spaces, but when you're naming any of your fields or your tables, it's best to avoid spaces. It's a best practice. In short, it can mess up the Visual Basic code. So let's go ahead and click on OK. So this is the design mode of the table. First of all, there's a primary key. We don't need that. We can just click on that to undo it. Second of all, this is set as an auto number. An auto number is just that. Every time you create a new record, it assigns a new number. We don't need that. We might eventually, but not for the moment. So we're going to change that to a short text. So this is the data type, and this is the name of the field. So the name of the field will just be called video_name. Again, avoiding spaces. And also, the knee-jerk reaction may be just to use name. Well, what's the name of the video? Problem with that is as your database grows, lots of things are going to have a name. Customer name, client name, file name, username, employee name. You may find yourself wanting to use name a lot, and so just using name isn't descriptive. Also, name is really a protected word, because when you look down here at the properties, there's certain words that are being used, and so like if you use the word format, that could cause problems, or caption, and things like that. So you have to be careful not to use protected words. So you can use these words appended to something else, like how I did video_name, or I could do video_format, but you wouldn't want to just call it format. So we'll call this one video_path. This will be a hyperlink. And the last one will be called video_thumb, short for thumbnail. And this will be an OLE. So now what's nice about this example is we've looked at 3 different types of data types. Short text is just that. It's just letters, numbers, spaces, symbols. Hyperlink. So a hyperlink is going to function as a link. You will be able to click on it, and it will bring you out to whatever you've clicked on. Now, this is an important distinction. The the videos themselves are not stored in the database. The database is just used for routing. It's like, okay, it's out there. That's where you want to. That's where the operating system is going to be sent to. That's where the video player is going to play the video from. So it's not actually stored in the database. It's simply directing traffic to the proper location. Now, OLE object, this is going to be an object that is indeed stored in the database. So, and OLE just means object linking and embedding. So whether or not something is stored within an object, we'll call it objects since they're called access objects. So whether or not something is stored within an object or whether or not there's a link and that you can change it externally and then that changes the linkage. Okay, so let's go back to view. It wants us to save our changes. So now this is what would be not facing the user because this is, as I said, a table. So this is really an underlying the back end sort of aspect of the experience. So let's see, video name, video path, video thumb. So we'll call this. Now, since I have some tutorials making the game Dig Dug, we'll use that. So we'll call this Dig Dug 01. What's the path? Well, I already have that folder. Now, if you notice, when you're looking at your directory, it doesn't show you the actual path. So if you click on it, then it does show up. So copy that. And specifically, we want this one, dig space dug space 01.mp4. So let's actually expand this out. So all I did was point at that line until the double arrows show up. We'll paste that in. Add the /, and then we said it was dig dug 01.mp4. And then this is the OLE object. So if you right click, you can choose Insert Object, Create from File, Browse. Again, we'll come up here, but this time we'll paste. And then we'll choose This is the thumbnail, so we'll choose Unity logo.bmp for bitmap. And then, okay. Let's do another one. It was hidden object. I believe it was number 10. Now, just to be clear, while this should indeed represent this, you can actually type whatever you want here, and the proper video will still show up. So this is what determines what is shown, not this. Now, true, it would confuse people if you call this the wrong object. I just want you to know that this isn't like case sensitive or anything. It should be indicative of what they're going to link to. So let's go back to that. So it's hidden objects 10.mp4, and I believe there's a space there. So we'll paste this in again. Hidden objects 10.mp4. Insert object, and we'll do the same one. Now, to really demonstrate this correctly, I should use a different logo, but we'll use that one for now. I don't want to do too much at once. Okay. So let's close that. Save it. Now, just to be clear, saving it isn't for the purpose of saving the data. As soon as you enter a value into a field, that's it. You've made the change. Well, if you haven't exited the field, you could hit escape. But otherwise, if you've moved on to another field, you've saved your change. The reason why it said save was because it wanted to save the fact that I had widened the columns. So, going to click on create, and now we're going to create a blank report. Now, the final version, we might not use a report, but it's a good starting place. We'll go to design view. And now you have to declare what the source of data for this report is going to be. So we go to design, go to property sheet, make sure this dot is selected up here. And for data, click on the drop down arrow and you have training videos. That's the name of the table. Go to add existing fields and now you can select. We'll do video name. I'm trying to think how this would be lined up for a business. Probably name, video, and then thumb. Now, probably a little redundant to have a thumbnail in a video. That's what we got. Now, this is a report, okay? So for every single value, this entire thing gets repeated. So if I have 100 values in my table, this gets repeated, which means all this space gets repeated. So we need to actually shrink this up. This, which shows up at the beginning of every object when you drag and drop it, this is a label, so really not necessary to have it again. So you can delete labels, it's not a big deal. You can always come up here and create a new label. That's label right there. And let's get rid of that one too. Just size this out a bit. I think that should do it if I haven't forgotten anything. So we'll save this. We'll call this video underscore, call it RPT, short for report. Now let's go ahead and run it. We'll just click on view again. And there you go. So name of the video, the link, and the thumbnail. Now, couple problems. This is showing your user where it's stored. Really a bad idea, okay? But like, as I've mentioned before, this is an iterative process, okay? So you really usually don't want to show your users where something is stored. That gives them insight into the design of the network and things like that. So you want to be very careful about that. So we'll get to that when we start talking about security. Also, you can see the size is wrong here. That's better. And again, you could argue that you don't need the thumbnail and this link. Now, what we could do is maybe we can think about masking this. And so it says, click here to launch, that kind of thing. But I think this is a good place to stop because this is just the basic idea of how this would work. And so if we click on this, you're going to get a typical warning message and your video plays. Click on this one, video plays. Now, obviously, like I said, this is really rough. You've got a few things going on, like you see the actual path, which you don't want them to see. But rather than masking this, I think I mentioned that earlier in the video, instead of masking it where the hyperlink would still be active, but you change the default text to rather than being the actual link, it would say click here to play. Rather than doing something like that, what we could do is we go back to design view and we're going to take this and we're going to make it invisible. And you're going to say, well, why make it invisible? Why even have it be there if you're not going to use it? By making it invisible, we can still access the information and do something with it. So what we're going to do is we're just going to move this up And if you want, you can also move the border up here a little bit so there's not quite so much space between entries, but I'm not really trying to focus on the minutia of the actual layout. It's more getting the basic functionality. All right, so we move this up. We go to Format. We go to Visible. We change it to No. So let's just quickly run that so you can see that it is indeed invisible. And now we want this information to be transferred to another object. So let's take a button. Everyone likes buttons. And it's called Command 5. We're going to change the text. Now, changing the text does not change the name of the object. That would be separate. So we're going to change this to click to play. I can shrink that button a little bit. And again, you can worry more about the minutia of layout. This is, again, just trying to get the functionality right. So, click to play. See how it says caption? So we changed the caption, but the actual name is still Command 5. So let's go ahead and change the name of the object. So where it says name, let's change this to play underscore button. So play button. Now with play button selected, click on the event tab. The event tab is just that. When something happens relating to this object, depending on the event, depends on what you want to have done. So in this case, it says on click. Well, that's exactly what we want. We want something to happen when people click on it. So we'll go to Code Builder. So as you can see, it says play underscore button because that's what we named the object, and it's the click event. What we're going to do is we're going to paste some code in here. Application.follow hyperlink. So we're telling the system that it's going to follow a hyperlink, and whatever this hyperlink leads to, that will execute. So if it's a document, it'll open. If it's a video, it'll play, such as in this case. And this is why we used why we left the field that contains the hyperlink on the report. Because what we can do is we can just say me, which refers to the object that the script is attached to, or the script is attached to an object on the report. So it'd say, okay, something on the report. So me, and it is the video path. So application.follow hyperlink me.video path. So we save this, close this, and watch what happens. Save this. So now you have a nice clean click to play button. You no longer see the path. Pointing at it doesn't show you the path. And if you click on click to play, normal warning. And that is indeed the Dig Dug video. Click to play. Okay. And that is indeed the hidden object one. So you still have that information on I keep wanting to call it in a form, sorry, on the report, but it's now hidden from the user. And so now you've added an extra layer of security where you're not showing the structure of your network. So that alone cleans it up quite a bit. So the question now is, well, do you really need a button? I wanted to show you this, like I said, for, say, an environment, a business environment where it's a little bit more sterile. You don't have quite as much flash. Maybe if you are going to make this facing to customers, you would want a thumbnail. So can we replicate that same functionality? Let's go to Design. So we click on this, and sure enough, it does have an event, and it does have on click. Now this is the video thumbnail object. So we do the same thing. We click on the ellipsis, go to Code Builder. Here it is, video thumb. We do the same thing. So we're not going to reinvent the wheel here. We're going to use the same functionality. We're using the same type of event. We're just putting it on a different object. And now let's see if it works. There you go. There's the dig dug. And there's the hidden object. So, just like that, you now have taken a rather unsightly and, as we said, a threat to the security of your network, hidden that information and put it onto the much more aesthetically appealing thumbnails. So, or you can also use the button, either one. So like I said, I want to show you both ways depending on what your use for this is going to be. So I think that's about it for now. We can tweak a few more things, but I don't want to get too much into the aesthetics of this. I just wanted to get the functionality in place. If there's interest in me continuing this, I'll add more to this. Like maybe I'll add a login, and then we'd build out the table so the table would say who has the right to see which videos. So what you do is, for one thing, you could say create a, rather than trying to list everyone's name, you would simply have an access level 1, 2, 3, 4. Each person would have an access level, and then you're just checking for the access level of the person who's logging in as opposed to their name. All right, so I think that should about do it for now.